This video is the second in a two-part series explaining a concept for a hiring analytics app that systematizes hiring decisions and enables decision makers to avoid costly errors. The envisioned app provides two instruments, a standard scorecard and a decision theoretic scorecard based on mathematical decision theory. In the previous video, I explained the functioning of the two kinds of scorecards and provided motivation for each one. In this video, I explain how to make the best use of the decision theoretic scorecard. The decision theoretic scorecard asks the evaluator to estimate the probability that a candidate will perform at a 1 out of 5, a 2 out of 5, a 3, a 4, and a 5 out of 5 on each of the criteria relevant to the job. Users of the decision theoretic scorecard should keep in mind that there is a well-established tendency of evaluators to overestimate their ability to discern a candidate's quality in a particular area. To combat this tendency, evaluators are encouraged to imagine a range of possible scenarios compatible with their evidence about a candidate, including both good scenarios and bad scenarios. The rating grids should be filled in with the full range of scenarios in mind. It is recommended to use a bell curve in the grid as a starting point. In fact, the app supplies a bell curve as the default grid pattern, and the user must modify that pattern on the basis of their information about the candidate. The reason for starting with a bell curve is that the distribution of a characteristic in a population is almost always well represented by a bell curve. To use a standard example, the number of people of middle height is much greater than the number of very tall or very short people in a population. So also for any particular job candidate and almost any characteristic, it is more likely that the candidate is near the average for that characteristic, a 3 out of 5, than that the candidate is at an extreme end, a 1 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5. So the bell curve is a good default starting point. But it is also recommended that evaluators update their rating grids as frequently as possible as new information comes in. For instance, an evaluator might have something very close to a bell curve for a candidate on the criterion communication skills prior to the interview. But if the candidate expresses herself or himself very well in the interview, then the grid should shift to represent greater certainty that the candidate is 4 or 5 and not a 1 or 2 out of 5. An evaluator's grids can be used to determine what information still needs to be gathered about a candidate through interviews, follow-up conversations, references, etc. If an evaluator's grid for organizational skills remains relatively flat, that is, all columns significantly below 50%, then the evaluator needs to gather further information about the candidate's relevant organizational skills. The decision theoretic scorecard therefore not only helps evaluators use the information they have, but also helps them determine what information they still need to gather. These videos have provided a basic understanding of the hiring analytics app that we envision and the two scorecards, standard and decision theoretic, that the app features. For further information or to provide feedback, please contact Matthew Lee at mlee@berry.edu.